Distraction. Written by BNHA Scribbles. On Tumblr. It wasn't a typical training session. Usually, when people hear the word training, they think about the physical. Weights, punching bags, and sparring mats. Not whispered conversations beneath a starry sky, lazy bodies sprawled out across the grass. Then again, this was a different sort of regimen. One meant to exercise the mind. "How much longer till the next round?" you asked, your compulsive need to win leaving you with an anxious feeling that stretched to your fingertips. "Depends. What time is it?" Shinsou didn't sound nearly as prepared as you were. The only thing he seemed determined to do was relax, his arms folded comfortably across his chest. You peered at your phone. 5 to 9. 3 minutes. It's an odd time to set off fireworks. Not the top of the hour or some other round number, but Shinsou rattled it off without hesitation. You had to wonder how long he's been doing this, how many festivals he's spent out here, just watching the sky light up late into the night. How many times he's done it alone. Shinsou never looked particularly sad when he talked about growing up with a quirk like his, dealing with the stigma, the accusatory stares, the loneliness. He always just shrugged and said something dismissive like, "I don't know anything else," or, "That's just the way it is sometimes." There's no overt anger, frustration, sadness, only a stoic sort of acceptance for the way things ended up happening. Still, you thought you could catch something flashing across his expression whenever he teased you, whenever he thought he pushed you too far. Maybe you're reaching, but it almost looked like he was afraid. Afraid he'll push you away. Afraid he'll have to go back to the way things were before he knew what it meant to be with someone. You brushed off the train of thought before it could tinge your expression. If there was one thing Shinsou hated more than anything else, it was to be pitied. "What's the word this time?" He seemed to think for a second, fingers tapping against his tea in a lazy sort of rhythm. After a quick moment of that, he sat up and peered over at you, lazy eyes at odds with his positively devious smirk. "Quintessential." Of course. It's a long word, a harsh word, riddled with rough consonants. More sound for Shinsou to cling to as a beacon for his brainwashing. You'd be under his control before you could even wipe out his hearing. Your quirk had its limits, after all. Selective sensory deprivation wouldn't really be fair if it didn't have its drawbacks. You could knock out any of a person's 5 senses for as long as you could concentrate on just that. If you stopped for even a second to think about the weather, or the commotion in the sky, or even your name, then it'd be over. Using your quirk required extreme concentration, and the more intensely you could hone in on your target, the quicker you could incapacitate them. So, in a way, this was a race. If you wanted to win, you'd have to knock out Shinsou's hearing before he got the chance to brainwash you. "That's a cheap trick, and you know it," you pouted, picking at some grass and hurling it in Shinsou's direction. "Pick something shorter for once. You have like a full 2 seconds to get me before I can even start thinking." "If you're as good as you think you are," Shinsou said, the tightness in his voice betraying his competitive nature. "You'll win without the handicap." You scoffed. "Handicap? Says the man that insists he needs fireworks for this to be a fair match." That got a chuckle out of him. "Wouldn't be training if there wasn't some sort of distraction." He rested his elbow on top of his folded legs, leaning in and propping his head up on his palm. "Explosions go off in cities all the time. Gotta be prepared to jump into action the second that happens, right?" Shinsou was right about all of it, of course, but there was no way you'd ever admit that out loud. Instead, you plot out your master plan, the way you'll finally stick it to the purple-haired cheetah. Even if he technically wasn't even cheating, seeing as the two of you had never really made formal rules for this whole game, training. But all of that aside, this time you definitely win. Fine, you said, earning a raised eyebrow from Shinsou. You weren't the type to concede a point if you could help it. Regardless, you continued. Don't you get distracted either. It was his turn to scoff. Right. And you can just tell he hasn't figured you out. Has no clue what you're plotting. Perfect. You folded your legs and mimicked Shinsou's posture. Not another word is uttered, even though the fuzzy feeling in your gut is so intense you felt like screaming. Out of the corner of your eye, you saw a flash of red shooting upward into the sky. No sound yet, though. The first boom fizzle would be the starting gun. Neither of you could start your mental tug-of-war until it went off. 1 second in, nothing. 2 seconds in, though it felt like 10, there's still a big, whooping nothing. After 3 seconds, a thunderous heavy sound shook the ground, and you put your plan into motion. You leaned in, not an odd action in itself considering it was something you did all the time, an old trick you used to zero in on your target's size, the most natural point of focus you've found. Then you concentrate. The difference from past matches laid in the way you didn't stop once you've pushed yourself up and onto your knees, your hands pressed flat against Shinsou's shoulders. Quintessential, you said firmly, clearly, the tip of your nose brushing against Shinsou's. There were fireworks bellowing in the background, but there's no way Shinsou couldn't hear the word, not when you're this close to him. He should be able to feel it, pick up on the sound as it wafted over his skin, passed along the air from your lips to his. Still, you're well in control, even after the final syllable faded into the clamor of the night. Then still, after the final firework fizzled into silence. You couldn't contain your grin, looking every bit as haughty as you felt. How's this for a distraction? And something snapped. You were no longer in control of your own body, much to your surprise and irritation. You'd been positive you'd caught him. His arrogant smirk and your inability to even roll your eyes told you that you had, in fact, been wrong. Tricks only work if you use them to actually win. It was a nice try, though. A good idea. In your mind, you were telling him off. Stop patronizing me, asshole. Shinsou's words made your skin feel like it was burning, and you're not entirely sure if that's because his taunting made you seethe, or because his hot breath is still colliding with the lower part of your face. You know, I bet you thought you had this in the bag. You didn't count on your little distraction working both ways, did you? I swear you are the worst. Wait until I... Shinsou laughed softly, leaning his forehead against yours. Man, I'm probably in for it once I release you. I should stop digging my own grave here, but... Something twinkled in his eyes. I won fair and square. You know what that means, kitten? His hold over you eases, and on your first exhale in freedom, you groaned, loud and heavy. It was the fireworks. Too loud, you said through pursed lips, even though you both knew it was a total lie. I still don't think this was very fair, Toshi. Yeah. Pay up. You huffed, defiant, and Shinsou grabbed your chin, grinning. Listen, I could make you, but that wouldn't be as much fun now, would it? You didn't miss your opportunity to be contentious. Who knows? It might be, but by that point you already leaned forward, using your lips to smother his next retort.